Well, what we may want to share today would be good people. This thing of fame and over popularity is not advisable, because when you grow like the story of David, there is some food here. There is this thing which is called fame. Fame comes at a price. When we're talking about the story of Jesus, remember that in the Last Supper there is something that is monumental that took place there. Jesus says, one of you is going to betray me. And then they ask who? And then he says, the one who dips. I don't know, the one I'm going to give after I dip. And then he dips the that which they were eating, and then he gives it to Judas. And then when that happened, the disciples did not understand what was going on. It was something that happened so discreet. And he then bends towards Judas and says, go do what you must. Well, it's something that was not noticed because Judas was responsible of the funding. In fact, he thought he is funding Jesus. And everybody else thought that Judas is the financier. But Judas noticed something, that Jesus is not what they thought he truly is. He's not an earthly king. And he truly means it when he says his kingdom is heavenly. So Judas, as a politician, thought that he should redirect the funds. So he thought that by betraying Jesus, he's reclaiming the funds so that they will invest in somebody else who will have the potential of leading the Jews out of the Roman rulership and set the Romans free, because the Romans and the Jews were at war at that time. They said there was even a city where the Jews were resisting the Romans, and then that city was overthrown, and then the people were killed. Right before the story of Jesus begins, the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, there was another upheaval, an uproar, where people arose, and then there was a genocide that took place. So an instruction came from Caesar, the king of Rome, that if there will ever be another riot in Judea, the one who is holding the position of leadership, the governor of Judea, will suffer the consequences. So as Jesus was growing so famous and popular, fame again, there were risks there. And Jesus also knew. That is why they say he was preaching, but he was very careful of what he says when he says it. It says even occasionally they tried to hold Jesus and stone him and kill him, and Jesus would flee because he knew that it's not just the time. They always wanted to kill him because he was too famous. He was too famous. Jesus was one of those people, without setting up posters, without inviting people in advance, he will fill the whole stadium. No invitation, nothing. No banners of invitation inviting. As long as Jesus is there, he was always followed by thousands of people. Imagine in that time, 2,000 years ago, about 2,000 years ago, thousands of people will follow and flock. He will have to stand at the coast and then preach. He'll stand on top of a boat and then he will speak so that the current will carry his voice so that the masses will hear. Or he will stand at the top of the mountain or at an elevated place, and then he will speak so that the current that comes, or the gale force winds, or on the leeward, or the winds that come down the mountain will carry his voice to the to the masses so that everybody hear. So Jesus was super famous. Many people knew Jesus. Many people knew about Jesus. But there's this thing about fame. Fame goes along with being sacrificed. I'm sure people remember the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman. The guy became extremely famous. For the first time, we saw a black superhero on our screens. Fame. Martin Luther King Jr. Fame, powerful. What happened to him? Also see Robert Mugabe, the most demonized human black man I know. We also saw Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Fame, power. You know, these trends, these people, you pick up these things about fame. That fame is something that you must know that anytime soon something might happen to you because of fame. Fame is vanity. Fame and popularity. Careful. I can mention names right now of people who became extremely famous, but because they did not have a society that they belonged in, because they did not have a collective that they belonged in, because they did not have proper backing, because they did not have covering, because these are the things that fame demands. Otherwise, the collective society will sacrifice you because nobody is there to defend you. How do you know this? When the Sanhedrin met, said these boys, they are not educated and yet they are so influential and powerful and famous. Let us kill them. Because there was nobody in the courts or in the collective, like all the political parties. You see the name of the party, but behind there is a huge backing power that backs the name. That is why these are called idols. That is why all these celebrities are called idols. Because in as much as you see the image of that person in front of you, there is a huge force behind them that backs them. Should anybody come and say, we need to sacrifice so and so, the backing will talk on their behalf. That is why I'm saying, if you're an ordinary Christian out there or an individual who is just looking for a good life, please do not follow the path of fame. Remember the wheel. I gave you the demonstration of the wheel. Then what saved the disciples is that another influential man called Gamaliel said, no, good people, you want to kill these boys, you are fighting against them. Yes, there have been other messiahs and false messiahs that came along like they have. But there's something different about these boys. We might find ourselves fighting against God and then the collective. Remember the reason I told you that if there's another upheaval, the rulers of today will suffer. So the collective said, okay, we are considering your words. You're an influential man and you have credit and you have a name. Perhaps we should let these boys go. They are going to die out. And that is how the gospel continued. God orchestrated a strategic plan. That is why everything that we do, we must do it under the guidance, the critical guidance of God. Otherwise, you will risk suffering or you will even risk death. I know, Bazalwane, that it sounds like I'm injecting fear to our young leaders. But you need to understand the martyrdom. The martyrs. You remember Stephen? He rose up. It's good. Just something. And he was quick to die. So this is a warning that I'm sending to all those people that are aiming to be famous. Remember Jesus, what happened to him. Remember all these nations. Remember, I don't know the name of Zimbabwe before it became Zimbabwe, but that was the bread and butter of Africa. The basket, the bread basket of the whole continent. That nation was extremely, extremely progressive and productive. However, because of what happened, they became the spark of fear. You remember when King Shaka came to take the kingdom from the king Skujan, killed him in front of everybody, and then it sent a shockwave across the nation. That is something that Isilo, the great king Shaka Zulu, knew because they were trained. They read books. In fact, they didn't read books, but riddles, stories, fairy tales were told, and the king was exposed to many people because he was always rejected. You remember that he even said with King Dingiswai, who was exposed to many stories at Dingiswen, and then he came in exile, and then he came and then he related that to King Shaka, and then King Shaka. That is why it's important to read and learn so that you can pick up the patterns that others are missing. Reading books or being a person of interest, just find out anything that happens to you, find it out, and understand that the beautiful thing that you can ever do for your life is living a peaceful life like a monk. Why should you attack a monk? Why should you be against a monk? It's a person of wisdom and knowledge. Share that with your children. Be a family man, be a family woman. Why are you always at arms? What are you fighting for? Who are you fighting really? Do you really have to fight? What is it that we are fighting for? Please tell me. Where did it all begin? Remember that the story is only told by those who survived to tell it. Even the history is what they say it is. What happened is what they say happened, because they are the only one who survived after all. So I want you to be very careful of the battles that you choose to engage. The fact that your father or your mother are fighting, it's none of your business. You have a life to live. You know, this thing of battles, Bazalwan, fighting this one's battle, you're a pawn in other people's chessboard. You're regarded as collateral. You die, you die. Remember the story that I told of that boy who was a soldier all his life, and he was in his deathbed, and he told the young boys that were coming to, it's vanity. I've carried a gun all my life. I'm 28 years now, and I'm dying. I could be living more. I could have chosen a different path. You have a life to live. You have a destiny. My mothers used to say to me, this is a race that I must run. There are victories to be won. Give me power every hour to be true. Perhaps we have all been choosing the same path. Same path. And the results are the same. You can't fight against the foundation that you're standing on. Well, you can, but be careful that one day it might be taken away and then you'll fall. Free fall. So take time to study anything and everything that you become part of. Why am I part of this? What is this? What am I learning from this? Is it developing me? Or is it depleting me? Or is it degrading me? Why am I here? What am I doing here? What is the essence of me being here? You can't do that in noise. You can't. Where there is noise, where there is lack of silence, no one is listening. Even the brain cannot listen. It needs silence. That is why we hear to a great man of God will go up to the mountain, not because they will meet God or have so much power. They had time to regroup, to rethink, to discover things about themselves. Whilst you are busy drinking beer and playing and making noise and being petty there, playing limited things, limited beliefs, being petty, they are up in the mountain, rediscovering themselves. That is how the great King Shaka Zulu did it. He was always in isolation, and besides, was always rejected, and everybody was always looking down on him. He was a joke, a laughing stock. That fueled him. He was always isolated, practicing new battle tactics, and he was always listening. He was mentored. He had a mentor. Thing is why. And many other men, because remember, Queen Nandi was always staying here, staying there. So he was collecting all that wisdom, all those stories, because elderly men will tell stories to the young children. And over and above that, you do not take much concern when you're talking to someone you don't think will ever be anything. So you just do anyhow in front of them. Tell them anything. Yeah, besides, they are nothing, they are nobodies, they are just a laughing stock. So little did they know that they are building him into becoming a man of wisdom. That is why when many settlers came with beautiful things that were surprising to other people, they were not surprising or new to King Shaka Zulu, because he was with Dingiswayo, and King Dingiswayo knew the logistics. King Dingiswayo was also mentored by many other kings, because mentorship is something that is intergenerational. That is why even in the Zulu kingdom right now, there are things that they make sure that you don't dare go anywhere near those things. Even in English kingdom, in the England kingdom, there are things that they make sure that you can be politicize everything, but if you start touching those things, you've grown too far. So the same thing must happen with you. There should be things that you protect with your full might about yourself. There should be things that you know before other people know about you. Because if you don't, those people will use those things that they know about you against you. God bless you. We love you. We appreciate you. I hope that one day we will meet and talk. But if we don't meet here, we will meet at Jesus' feet.